Today's going to be a really incredible webinar, and I'm like mind-blowingly excited about it because, you know, they always say, learn from people who came before you that have taken paths that you would love yourself to take, and learn and follow people who have done things that really inspire you, who motivate you to succeed. And today's guest is one of those people for me. It's my makeup mentor. And our conversation series, you know, which we started with Vanessa, I know you guys loved so much. So we're following up by today chatting with the person who is the reason I teach the way that I teach, probably a huge part of the reason that I teach. One of the people who I found a soul connection with, who that sort of, you know, work from a place of love and kindness and watch the universe unfold for you. And that's what's happening today. So we're going to get into it in a minute, but I'll give a full introduction to her in a minute. But I just want to let you guys know how excited I am and how I think fortunate we all are, because she's going to inspire you. She's going to excite you. She's a beautiful soul. And it's going to be just, it's going to be a beautiful little bit of time that we get to spend together. So if you guys aren't sure who I am, my name's Nathan Johnson. I have the great privilege of being the executive makeup artist here at QC. QC is an amazing learning institution and the premier and probably oldest online learning makeup institution. We pride ourselves on teaching from classic technique, and we have an extraordinary number of students who've gone on to success, which is a pretty beautiful thing. My career itself has been going on for a long time, and in the window of time I've been working, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of celebrities. Some of them that you would know include Paul McCartney, Liza Minnelli, Alicia Keys, Kate McKinnon, Leah Michele. I was the artist on 2 seasons of TV's Project Runway, and I've been a global artist and international educator for brands. That's the power of what you know, we can all do with makeup, right? And today, you're going to meet my mentor, who's done even more than I have. So here she is. This is my dear friend and my mentor. She has worked in every area of makeup. She has, despite the fact that she looks 15 years old, she has worked for an extremely, decade after decade after decade, despite the fact that age has not managed to find her. And tell us a little bit about yourself, my love.
Oh, God bless you, Nathan. Thank you for that amazing introduction. I am honored and humbled to be among you, and I couldn't be more proud of Nathan. He is a luminary star, and he's just been an amazing student way in the past, and an amazing makeup artist and a leader in the industry. And it brings me great joy to do this with him and with QC. So, well, I have gotten my start in makeup, of all things, by falling into it accidentally. It was a big surprise. I was a fashion buyer in Manhattan on 7th Avenue, and one of the buyers in the office landed an emergency date on the subway that morning, and she wanted her makeup all of a sudden done in the office. And I guess I looked like I had the most makeup on, or I looked, you know, the most put together, because she ran over to me and asked me if I would do her makeup. And then I was totally shocked. I had never touched somebody, you know, that I didn't really know that well. Anyway, I took whatever I had and I fixed her up as best I could. She had a great time on her emergency date. And my boss had seen all this happen, and she was friends of ours. And she suggested to me, why don't you go do weddings on weekends? And I thought, makeup for weddings on weekends? I wasn't even familiar with that whole concept. So being the way that I am, I need to study anything before I take it seriously, and I know what it's about, and I can delve into it to find out if it's a perfect match for me or not. So I went to school. And back then, the courses were part of hair schools. So I got lucky. I had a really great teacher who was Stevie Nicks' makeup man. And as soon as I started learning that it was and is an art, immediately I thought, wow, this is the creativity that I've been looking for. It's more creative than just buying certain styles and dresses for certain stores and fashion. And it's creating something immediately with your hands. So it really thrilled me. And one course after another, because I never felt like I knew enough. The more I learned, the more I realized there was more to learn. And I just kept studying.
And to be honest, and I know you, so I'm just gonna share this. You've never stopped learning.
Thank you. No, I feel like if you stop learning, you're dead. You know, even mentally, just mentally, you're dead. I feel like life is about learning. It's about growth. Knowledge is power, and because it makes you an expert at what you do. And that to me is true power. You know, I've seen a lot of so-called experts who think that they may be experts, but they have not. If you don't learn something from inside to out in your consciousness somewhere, you know that you could be doing more. So some people masquerade that with a bravado, but then eventually when they're called to do the tough jobs, it all falls apart. But when you have intrinsic learning, you're prepared for anything.
That's what I
And
always tell the students. When you really understand technique, you always have something to fall back on. You will never have to worry. Your nerves can never get the best of you because you can fall back on your knowledge.
exactly, totally correct. I'm a firm believer in education. My father was an educator. It's just something I really believe in. I see a big difference between people who take the trouble to educate themselves and to bring the finest possible to any art, because it's all the same process. You know, you need to educate yourself, know the ins and outs, know all the details and the subtleties, and then you can rely on your technique to just blindly create and have a great time.
And that's the magic, because if we go in just as wild, unrestrained creatives, God knows what'll happen. But when you go in understanding balance, precision, symmetry, and just technique as a whole, you can't help but masterfully create on the human being who's in front of you.
Brilliantly said. Brilliantly said. And with that going on with my education, I quickly learned that to me, color science and facial sculpting are the keys and the backbones to beauty makeup. And I zeroed in on those techniques. And those kinds of things you really can only learn in detail through a classic education. You know, it's not really on social media that you can get that type of a curriculum.
No, that's true. And even when you get down to the variances of the things that you can do just with the subtlety within eyeliner, you're never going to learn that on social media.
Absolutely. It's so true. And it's so funny, but a lot of people need to be taught the subtlety and the restraint first, because they want to go at it with a real heavy hand sometimes and overload the person. And then you don't really see their features. You just see a kind of a cover up.
Exactly. So it's sounding to me like, and also one thing that's awesome and that I had the opportunity to learn firsthand, and that because I had the great opportunity to learn it from Chantal, it's something that we also teach here at the school. And it is that way to start to work with sculpting and gradient, which is one of her specialties. Bringing dimension to a human face is a specialty of hers. And what I'm learning is the more I listen to you is, and I've known from the moment that we've met, that you credit the knowledge and the education for the path of discovery that you embarked on and for your success.
Absolutely. I totally do, because I don't come from a family of artists directly. There are some, but not my parents. So it was all a mystery to me. I drew very badly in kindergarten, so I wasn't coming at it as this fantastic artist. I thought, oh my goodness, I need to be taught everything. I was kind of insecure about it for a long, long time too. I would say maybe the first 10 years of my career. And it's so amazing that I was thrown into all these situations and saying, no, no, you don't want me. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Oh, yes, you can do it. Are you going to stay home or are you going to take the job? So I thought, oh, my goodness. I would always take the job, of course, and, you know, kind of like arrive there shaky and then leave exhilarated and so happy and elated by what I had done and what I had learned, and seeing that there's a place to start, to grow, to continue, you know. And today with all these educational institutions, this brilliant institution here, it cuts out so much that we had to go through in the past without these kinds of curriculums, to kind of grab a piece here and a piece there and make phone calls and see who's teaching, maybe the head of a network, a television network. Those are the only people who would teach you anything, and you were kind of at the mercy of what they knew and, you know, how they felt.
Awesome. And exactly. And that's why I call this program a classic training program, because it builds the fundamentals so that you don't have to search everywhere to get them. Because in this day and age, there's so much misinformation available and misuse of technique that's been so popularized that it can limit and damage your opportunity to really grow as an artist. And I want to transition this now to ask you, how did this journey bring you into the Film and Television Union?
Oh, yes, sure, of course. I've been a long-time member. And in the beginning, I landed a job in a local television network up here in New York, Channel 5. And I was given the choice. I would eventually have to join, and because you can't work on that network if you're non-union. And so I eventually joined, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful set of experiences. My mentor had a lot of influence in, you know, teaching me what I needed to know to get in. And things have changed too with the union. It's funny, we used to get in via like an 8-hour test, and sometimes that didn't work so well, believe it or not. So now it's more interviews, along with showing a portfolio, so that we can get a more well-rounded picture of who's applying. We can ask them questions. We can see how they answer, what type of person they are, and then of course we look at their work. So little by little, I kept working on television and film, and eventually I was appointed education chair for the union, which
is super prestigious.
Yes, I have to say humbly, yes. Yes, it is. It's super prestigious. You know, rare is the person who gets that. And that enabled me to travel to our southern territories of the East Coast Union, which would be New Orleans, Atlanta, Fort Lauderdale in the South, and to educate the new members and the existing members, to bring, because members join with different levels of expertise in different areas. So what everybody was asking for, the members included, was to possibly unite everybody on the same educational page. So I got to bring our top makeup artists from Saturday Night Live, the effects gentlemen, and we traveled and we went and we each taught our specialty courses to the members, and they were so elated they didn't want us to leave. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I've also had the pleasure of serving on the membership committee team who admits new members. So, you know, we talk to the new members, we interview them, and we see what their work is about, what their style is about. And also, I want to say something very important about the union is that the curve to get in used to be a flat 6 years, plus or minus. From the minute you start to be a makeup artist till the minute you kind of gather enough experience to join. And that's what it took me. However, that does not determine your work. The union is kind of an elite club that once you start to access the movies they make, it usually ends up starting with somebody that you're working with on a film or a television show saying to you, hey, my cousin is doing a new project next week. They have such and such budget. Would you be interested? Because they like your energy. They see your work and they like your energy. And then they say, it's union, and you're union, right? And then I can't tell you how many students at this point go, no, I'm not. How can I get in tomorrow? And that's just not the way it works. But it's so funny that I keep hearing this same story over and over again by people who don't even know each other. And then I say to them, okay, this is good. This means you need to start gathering your evidence, your proof of paid work, and all of that to eventually apply. So today, thanks to education, I have to say, the curve has been reduced to sometimes 2-3 years, which is from 6 years. That's pretty good.
It's huge. It's huge.
Yes.
So, you know, everybody watching, I think, you know, in case you haven't gathered this, and one of the things that I think is so impressive about Chantal is that she has put a mark on changing the quality of makeup in the film and television industry, because it set a standard across the industry. And that's a pretty darn amazing thing. And it's quite an accomplishment. Now, she's one of the most humble people that you're ever going to meet. She's worked, and you'll find this out later, and if you've read her bio, you know, she's worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of celebrities: Dolly Parton, Brooke Shields, the original Superman, Christopher Reeve, and I haven't even done a supermodel, and she's done a supermodel, you know, so Elle McPherson, you know, so long, beautiful career. And she's also had that great opportunity to influence something the vast majority of us watch almost every day of our lives in one way or another. And I think that that's beautiful and inspiring. But that being said, when you had the opportunity to travel down to Louisiana, you started to discover what I think has become one of your favorite things: mentorship.
Yes, absolutely. People did want to take me on as their mentor, and it was a naturally occurring relationship. And it was amazing for me to teach them sort of like the nuts and the bolts of face sculpting, color science, business agent we brought down on how to conduct your business, and the effects and everything. And mentoring just, I guess, came naturally by people needing guidance, and by me offering it, and by me understanding and remembering acutely what it felt like to start out. I was lucky. I had my teachers were my mentors, one after another. And am I answering your question? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's an open question.
Great. Yeah, it developed into other areas of life too. I mean, you know, social, how to behave on a job, you know, all of this stuff that I really hadn't, you know, planned on, but that just came naturally.
Yeah. And all of your work on TV started to put you into the celebrity world.
Yes.
And that turned into your, because we all come about it differently. For me, it started, my celebrity journey didn't start through TV first. My celebrity journey started with one celebrity and dominoed into others. So the main point is it can all be a different chain of events for each and every one of us on this path.
Yes, definitely. It's unpredictable. Don't try to harness it, control it, chart it, because it's going to surprise you left and right. And the best way to do it is to glide along and kind of improv it. And in the beginning, what I did is I never turned down any specific type of job. I did everything. Drag runway, regular runway, commercials, videos, TVs, weddings, retail. I wouldn't turn anything down because I thought, well, how am I going to know if I like it or not? And that was the best way to do it. And that's what I tell my students. Whatever comes your way, take it. Even if it may be in the beginning a non-paying job. Those were some of the best because they got me some of the most paying jobs in the future.
Yeah.
Because of people that you work with saying, oh, hey, I like your energy. Are you available next week?
Exactly. And, you know, then you had the opportunity to start working with an extraordinary number of these celebrities privately. And one thing you've always told me that I love, when do you know that you have really had an impact on a celebrity? When they introduce you to?
Oh, yes. When they bring you their family and their friends, you know, and my lunch hour at the network was spent doing a lot of relatives and friends of my dear actors and anchor people and stars. And that was such an honor because very often these are the most precise, let's say, exacting stars or people. And all of a sudden, they wouldn't tell me, oh, hey, you know, I really like your work. They'd never say that. They would say, hey, you know, my mom could use a lift, or my sister could use some help. Can I bring her to you? And I, right away, that felt like, oh my gosh, that feels so good. You trust me, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And now you had the opportunity, and we're not gonna, in some cases we're gonna name names and some we're not, but she had the opportunity to work with a major political figure. And when you were working with the major political figure, something that a lot of people stumble on, people have a lot of trouble matching undertone and telling the difference between undertone and overtone. And one of the moments when you knew you had your biggest gift with that was when you were sitting with a political figure and they had the reaction to your makeup.
Absolutely. And this was a male political figure in his, I would say, sorry, 50s or so. So it's not somebody that you would picture knowing or caring about makeup in the least. You know, he was busy running his empire there. And all of a sudden, while he's in my chair, he says to me, when I'm in your chair, I never look yellow. You never make me look yellow. How come that is? Why is that? And I was just dumbfounded because coming from who it was coming from was, oh my God, you noticed? That's incredible. And the man was a cool undertone. So that was one of the reasons I was going with the rosy, cool shades of foundation, concealer, powder, and everything for him, and not making him look yellow. So that really stayed with me.
And that's one of the main, I find that's one of the main things people are often worried about most in the beginning is being able to match and identify undertones. And in this course, we teach how to effortlessly and easily do that. And the technique we teach stems from exactly what I learned from the master genius sitting here on the opposite side of the camera.
Thank you.
And once you get the hang of it, like truthfully, it's very easy, isn't it? Once you get the hang of it.
Very easy. You develop almost like a camera eye, you know, A, from working on cameras, with cameras, B, from analyzing color. A lot, you can start to pick out who's a warm, who's a cool, who may be a neutral. It's practice. And the more, like any art, like playing the piano, you know, it takes practice in the beginning, but all of a sudden it clicks. And that is the best feeling in the world because it's effortless to match people after it clicks for you. And it's an understanding of warm and cool and your products and how that combines to match somebody invisibly. Because I still see some people who may not totally understand that the goal of facial products like foundation, concealer, powder, is to be invisible. It's not to enhance the color. It's not to see a demarcation line. It's to be like a private investigator. They're there doing the work, but you don't see them.
Yes, exactly. And the thing that I always try and tell people that those are you should never, they do their job and you never see them. You never know they're there. If you want to see something, you might want to see a little glow in here, but still, it shouldn't even look like it's blush. It should look like they're charmed. It should look like someone walked in and their heart started beating fast because that person's so attractive. And, you know, the only place you are ever going to see like the lily gilded here and here, your communication centers. Because yes, nobody putting on purple eyeshadows, even if you just use it on the lid, it's never going to be invisible. But what it can do is magical. But these are the places where we put the jewelry, so to speak.
That's exactly right. Brilliantly put. And if it goes with the person's undertone, it'll be less visible of a color than if it's against the undertone, where you can use that to do makeup that is not flattering on purpose for a film or some type of venue like that, where you want the makeup to wear the person, not the person to wear the makeup.
Yeah, interesting. And you guys, you're getting a lot out of this, right? It's pretty amazing. And what I think is pretty awesome is if you're brand new to makeup, you're probably getting a lot of inspiration and you're probably starting to see, oh, wow, some of this makes sense. But if you've been in makeup for a while, you're a student, you're probably starting to, from what she's discussing, get deeper nuance into things, which is amazing, which is why education, it's such an ongoing journey. And that's why even if you take a year off from some courses and then come back and keep learning, your perspective and your approach to makeup will always change. I too have never stopped learning. I always look at it like we're fruit, right? And as a piece of fruit, we always want to be a little green because the step after ripe is rotten. So we always want to stay just a little bit green so that we're always learning. We're always turning to the sun to collect and absorb more, because the last thing you want to do is fall off and be eaten by the ants.
Oh my God, I love the way you put that. That is so excellent. It's so true.
Yeah,
it's a great analogy.
And so what we're seeing here now, she's a master of classic application techniques, start to finish. I know I've seen her do them all, and I've learned them from her, and I've watched her in life do them for years above and beyond. But we've already discovered what two of her greatest passions are. And I think one of the things that I just want to say before we sort of step into asking her a question that I think I'm pretty excited to hear about. Her big passions have always been, you know, sculpting, working with imperfectly matching undertones, making people look perfect, but like nothing's there. And all of this is never anything you're going to learn from watching some video that has a clicker at the bottom and is trying to get you, pull you in through social media. You're just not going to learn it there. And neither Chantal nor I are against social media. It's a great form of entertainment. It shows you what's in a particular celebrity-driven area. And by particular celebrity, I mean Jenner, Kardashian, social media celebrity. It's very different than what you might see at the Academy Awards or the SAG Awards or the Golden Globes or any major award ceremony. But it's just important to know the differences between them and know it's okay to do one, but to know why you're doing what, which you can only know if you understand classic technique.
Absolutely. Excellent. That's the foundational knowledge. That's the power. That's the expertise.
Now, let's get a little gossipy. Your most favorite or memorable celebrity client, who was it?
I guess I would say there are a few, but Dolly Parton, because she was humble, she was kind, she was truthful. She wasn't syrupy, truthful, humble, kind. Yes, it would have to be Dolly. I also loved Harry Belafonte. He was also very rich, very humble. It's so interesting that what I had learned in my past, my experience, I don't know other people's, but the more accomplished celebrities or the celebrities who had been a celebrity for a while were always unmistakably the most humble. The James Earl Joneses, the Sigourney Weavers, the Ellen Burstyns, the actors or the celebrities, they were the most down to earth and the most humble and most gracious people. And the people who had come on my shows as guests and they were just starting were often the roughest. And I guess they needed to prove something, or they may have been nervous. But some of that was, I mean, you really have to know where it's coming from, and you have to know that once their little scenario is ended, then you'll return back to everything as you know it, including your makeup room. So there was a few, James Earl Jones, Patrick Stewart, a lot of the very trained actors were my favorite.
That's spectacular. And I have found in my experience, everything that you just said is true. Because I've had the opportunity to work with some legends who are like 40, 50, 60-year career long legends. And the same thing, they are the humblest, most genuine, gentlest.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful thing. And I think also it's so, well, and that being said, there's also sometimes occasionally one who's not.
Yes. 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 And they can just go off the deep end.
And our job in that is we just have to know our stuff, and we have to keep our dispositions in the right place.
Yes, absolutely. It's so important for the makeup artist to be a force of strength, calm, grounded, not a diva, because if you have two divas working together, the star and yourself, it's going to be a big clash unless you diva the same way and you really love each other. But there's got to be one that's the anchoring force, especially if the actor or the talent is in your chair and they're nervous and they have a script and they need to be calmed. I used to play soothing music in my makeup room over there, and even sometimes have some scented candles, something to soothe them and stay on one side of the chair so that they can read their script and I'm not dancing around.
Yeah, that's a really valuable piece of information. Again, something you only learn in classic training. You stay as much as you can in one single place and don't move.
Yes, yes. Better for your art, better for the person in your chair.
And another thing, just because you're here and I thought of it, I'm going to tell everybody something that you taught me, and I've never forgotten it, and I've used it forever. And I found it to be one of the most valuable little secrets. So guys, get ready for an amazing secret, because she gave this to me, and I have probably already given it to a lot of you. But one of the greatest things that I ever learned from her was, when you think you're done your makeup, stand behind your client and look at them in the mirror. Because you will see them in a two-dimensional plane, and it's like looking at a photograph. Your eye will see far more imbalances, asymmetries, imperfections than if you're looking at them in 360. And I have seen time and time again that one little decision to stand behind their shoulder and just look at them for a second, look at them in the mirror, you can make major, major corrections that you would not otherwise see.
Brilliant, Nathan. I wish every makeup artist who's starting would hear this. This is huge. And sometimes people have difficulty adjusting to this, but I also tell people to work in the mirror if they have to, or if they have a dissymmetry or a situation where one eyelid is different than the other. Very often I will be looking in the mirror while I'm painting, because that allows me, with the two-dimensional surface, to see dissymmetry better, just like the camera lens would. And sometimes I see when people don't do it, things are crooked, things are off. So
yeah,
that's
and
brilliant.
It's startling. And the more they start to train their eye, and I've told people this before, and a lot of our students are starting to discover it, the more you train your eye, and the more, because classic training, when you really take it very seriously, makes you look at makeup, not only your own, everybody's very differently. And you're going to start to see mistakes in everybody's makeup, like everywhere you go. So every time someone like does one of these imbalances and doesn't quite pay attention, you are going to see it, and it can start ruining every movie, every TV show, everything.
For sure. It's the worst pain in the neck.
It's
The
terrible.
curse of the artist.
So what are your 3 tips for students who want to start and find success in TV, film, or anywhere in the industry? What are your 3 little tips?
Absolutely. My first would be put forth your originality. Make your originality the center drive of what you are going to do. Don't hide it and decide that you're going to take another style because this might be more popular now, or you might see your friend doing it, or the magazines, or whatever. If you excel in a certain facet of the business, beauty, avant-garde, FX, anything that you feel driven by flow, you know, where you're not even thinking, you just create. Go with that, because that's your genius right there. Genius being your way of achieving a solution without having to think very much. You just go boom, you know, and you're there. So it's a gift, and I would say use that. Don't let yourself being swayed into going to another branch that you might feel, I'll adapt to it. You know, it won't be as successful. Number 2 is humility, because I really believe that humility stops you from standing in your own way. And it just lets you accelerate and grow and zoom and acquire and learn. In other words, your ego is not blocking you from learning because you're open. So humility to me is being open to any experience, you know, that you want to undertake, and basically having a really broad, expanded energy rather than contracted and thinking, oh, I can only do this, or, you know, I'm just so great at this, nobody can come near me. So that's contracting, and it's limiting you already before you even step out the door. The third thing is service. It's got to be a labor of love. Sometimes, love shows up in many forms, but I feel that for success, it's got to be coming from your heart and something that you truly adore, and that will just lead you. And you have to keep believing in it. And if you get rejected by some company today, that means nothing for tomorrow. I've gone through such experiences where people sometimes could be a little malicious, and they envy what you have or whatever, and all of a sudden you find yourself knocked out of a job, which is, you know, when I was starting, that happened to me, and I couldn't believe it. And I fretted and worried and ate myself up, and oh, it was awful. And then within 3 weeks, I had a much better job. But I didn't know that was around the corner. So I would have saved myself a lot of worry. So trust in the incarnation of your gift.
Exactly. Now, I just want to cycle back a second and talk about your mentor, because your mentor gave you 2 really amazing tips that you've shared with me in the past, and I've always found to be very inspiring, and I think everybody would learn a lot from them. What would you share those with everybody?
Let's see.
The first tip, every 10 years.
Oh, thank you. I've had 2 mentors, so I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. Yes, that was brilliant. Every 10 years, lighten your makeup hand. And I said, why? And the funny thing is, that mentor was a little gruff type of Sicilian barber's son who turned makeup artist, who looked like, I don't know, can't describe it. Anyways, I said, why? And he said, because you're going to become overconfident after a decade, and you might start pounding makeup on people. And you don't want to see heads moving with every sponge stroke. That is a no-no. So I actually gained clients by keeping my hands and my touch soft, because this mentor was a boxer when he was young, and you wouldn't believe how soft his hands were. It felt like a feather was touching you when he made you up.
And that's how it always should be. It should
Exactly.
be glorious to them.
Yes, calming, soothing, not just hitting or pounding.
And the second tip, so I don't catch you off guard, I should be able to give you mud.
Ah, yes, yes. Same mentor. He said in his little gruff voice, I should be able to give you mud, and you should make somebody look beautiful or at the very least interesting. Just mud, nothing else.
And the secret to doing that is education. It's technique.
Yes. Yes. And something else that you just made me think of that this guy said is when I first brought my portfolio to him, I had already been a working artist and I just wanted further education because, like I said, that's how I am. So he was a big name in film, television, and the union. And he looked at my portfolio and then he saw one model who I thought the makeup looked beautiful on her. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I was actually happy with it. And he said, what's this piece of meat over here? And he's pointed to her brow bone. And I said, piece of meat? And he says, yeah, she looks like she got hit by a bus. And I said, what are you kidding me? What are you talking about? And he says, you have to learn eye shading. And it turned out you have to take my course. So I thought, either he's putting me on or he really has something to teach. So I said, okay, what do I lose? I'll take the course. I love to learn. Took the course and I found out I didn't radically change my eye makeup technique, but what he taught me was a really beautiful, sculpted, enhanced brow bone shading technique.
Back to your specialty, sculpting and shaping the face.
Yes.
It's just amazing. And there's another thing that you've always said that I have just loved. Remember, the gift is in your hands.
Thank you. Yes, that's another thing from him is that he had said to me, you have to develop your hands. My hands were already developed, but he said, you have to focus on training your hands and always working and keeping them flexible, and limber, because the secret is in your hands. The secret is not in a product. It's not in a tool. They're going to come and bring you their own products, some of them, and their own tools and say, I only want you to use these. I don't want to touch anybody else's anything. And that happens quite a bit.
Yep.
So I was very grateful that the secret is in your hands. It's in a tool that you already have.
I think that's a beautiful way for us to start a gentle outro and begin to lead into the Q&A, which I think will be a tremendous amount of fun. Guys,
Terrific.
I also want to tell you something in case you're not aware. It is my great honor to tell you guys that she's officially part of our school. It is my pleasure to tell you guys that she's joined our faculty and she is one of the tutors. So we are very, very fortunate and blessed to have her, and it's going to be just a continued gorgeous journey. She'll be appearing in the virtual classroom. You'll see, she's a shining ray of sunshine in this world, and she'll bring a lot to everybody. I know she certainly brought a lot to me.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited. I love you too.
So let's dive in and let's take a look at some of these questions. Okay, so first and foremost, Ariel Leo, how do you deal with the union in terms of competition and rumors spread within the workplace? Oh, this is an interesting question.
That is an interesting question. I'm wondering if you mean rumors spread on a set when we're working, or, well, if you're in the union, the way you find out your true information is A, you get emails constantly from them, B, you get a newsletter, C, you go to a once a month meeting. It's either in person or on Zoom, depending on the situation of COVID and stuff like that. But there's always a once a month meeting, and members get to vote on the constitution that we create and the rules that we put in place.
I
I
think
don't know
that
if
that's
that answers it. Okay.
I think so. And here's a question regarding competition. So let me ask about this. Oh, she's talking about gossip. If people are gossiping about you in the workplace, how do you handle that? And in terms of people, say competition, people trying to compete for your job or knock you out of the job, how do you deal with stuff like that?
That is a really good question, because it takes every cell in your body to cooperate. It's okay. Competition is something, it's something that appears very ugly and very threatening, and in some cases can be. Like I said to you, I found myself out of a job, whom I might add by someone who was a student of mine who took my job. So to tell you that is the utmost competition, and it was done so underhandedly. But at that point, I thought my life was over, and then I watched it unfold into something bigger and more beautiful and better and just amazing, you know, where that person, in places where that person has never been, I've been. So I would say deal with it with a touch of spirituality or meditation. If you're not a spiritual person, just try to meditate. Just try to detach from your conscious monkey mind that keeps running thoughts and thoughts of threat and all of that. If you spend 10 minutes away from it, you'll see a bigger perspective, and you'll see that in the long run, these things are not going to affect you. As long as you do everything in your power to market yourself well and properly without going crazy, just, you know, sensibly, put out feelers. Eventually, you know what happens is gossip and things like that occur a lot among artists, unfortunately. And I, knowing what I know, would now look at the source maybe, or if I knew where it was coming from, and think that's a shame. That person really is lacking and needing and insecure, because I have no reason to gossip about anybody. I have no reason. If I think somebody's fantastic, well, I'm honored to be next to them. If I can learn something, great. So
And
go ahead, Nathan.
what I was going to say is 9 times out of 10, just what you were saying there, it's always the other person's afraid. It's fear. It's always their fear. And people seem to have this belief that there's not enough for everybody. And I've never found that to be true in my life. I have never found that to be true. I have found people have gotten jobs that I've wanted, and there has been another equally wonderful job waiting for me around the corner. I've never found that there's like 3 jobs and only 3 people are going to get them. There's an infinite number of jobs occurring and new ones being born every day. And people who have to surge and grab and steal from you are cheating themselves out of their own greatness that they will find, because they're trying to snatch and grab from other people. And I do believe it karmically comes round.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that brings me to another thought. That's exactly what you're saying, is that you can never compete against another person. You can only compete against your best self, meaning you can only get better. So these people who are trying to compete on an outward level are deluded.
Exactly. That was a great question, and I think it spiraled a really interesting conversation. Can you please give tips? And I like this because in this day and age, she wants tips on nose correction makeup. But the reason I like this is everybody, because of social media, seems to think noses need to be contoured. Social media has everyone thinking that every nose needs to be contoured. Thoughts?
That's really interesting. That's one of my pet peeves. It's really interesting because a nose can have a cartilage or a bone that's shaped like an S. Mine has actually a tiny S. You maybe not be able to see it right now. You can only see it in some photographs, but in cases like that, you need to highlight certain spots and you need to shade certain spots, and you do not need to go up and down the entire periphery because you're going to highlight a bump or you're going to pronounce a bump. So
or you're going to give someone a little elf nose.
Oh, yes, yes, which is really not attractive. Not in photographs, not in person. And I see a lot of that going around today. And they're not aware that you need to look at shape. You need to analyze shape and not just put a recipe on that's blind, that you'll be cooking the same dinner dish every night. How awful is that?
That's the greatest way to put it, because that's what I always say. When you learn, the problem with learning on social media is you're literally watching someone do a paint by number, and you are learning to paint by number it on someone else's face. So you're not going to know how to make it work with someone's completely different features. You're not going to know if this person has a recessed eye and the person in the video has a flat eye. You're not going to know how to, because you don't possess classic training, you're not going to know how to you can take any look and make it work on any human if you know how to make it work with their features. And you can't know that if you just copy, as you said, people's recipe. And these videos are literally like a recipe, and they limit you from being able to create because they keep you in the world of copying.
Exactly. It's a creation killer. Copying is just mimicking. It's not creating. It's so true. And the nose is a really good example because it's so overdone. The only time you want to think of doing a whole nose is if the whole nose appears wide on camera. That's all. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to add this.
Yeah,
and then,
go on.
Okay, you can feel with your fingers the bones of the person's nose that you're working on. Like I can feel a real big indent over here. So would I shade this? No, I would highlight it. The bump is over here.
Sculpting, her mastery. Jordan asks us, how did I approach you with the request of receiving her mentorship? And how should someone seek out a mentor? Well, for me, it was easy. I was, like her, I am very careful about learning. And I believe in learning. I came and I toured the school. And before I would even consider coming to the school, I spoke to every faculty member. And you probably remember this. And in the tour, that's when I decided I was going to attend the school because I knew I wanted to learn from her. That's why I made that decision to attend that school. And then just through that, it just developed naturally. She would share anything with me that I would ask about. If I needed help with something within the world of makeup, or even to get my mind in the right world of makeup, which sometimes, like they said, things can come at you from a million directions. Sometimes you just need someone who's walked the path before to say, take a breath, take a breath. That wasn't for you. The same thing she's saying here, because it's happened to all of us. It's happened to all of us. And one day when you guys are sitting in our shoes, people are going to be asking the same question, and you're going to be telling them the same thing. It might seem like everything right now, but it's actually nothing. And you'll see later that it was much smaller than you thought. And how should you approach a mentor? I think that what you need to do is make sure that they've walked a path that you yourself would be proud to have walked. Make sure that training is a part of their journey. Make sure that they are great and clear communicators. And I think very importantly, make sure, and it doesn't mean you have to be personality best friends. I do think that Chantal and I are kind of personality best friends,
Yes,
but
we
you don't
are.
have to be. But you have to be able to see eye to eye so that you can gain from them. That's the thing. And find someone who's generous with their information, because you will work with people who won't want to tell you their secrets. That's not someone you want to be your mentor. Is there anything you want to add to that, my love?
Oh, thank you. No, I couldn't have put it better. It's brilliant. And there are a lot of people who only want to share droplets because out of fear, like you were saying, they're afraid that they're going to make you too brilliant and then you can steal whatever they think you can steal. And I think Nathan, you do mentoring a lot. If I'm correct, you know, you mentor your students, and you're there for them, and I think that's such a gift. And through the school, through teaching, through learning classes, through being corrected of your makeup, you would get mentorship too that way.
That's where it comes. Anybody who comes to the school, she's correct. You are getting mentorship. You are getting guidance, because the joy of the school is everybody cares about you. Everybody cares about you. And part of the reason I feel so fortunate that she's with us is she's cut from that same cloth. She is a human being who cares. She cares. She cares about your success. She wants you to have the greatest journey on this planet that you can.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so true. My mentors were my teachers. So everybody I studied with, from one to the next, because back then we didn't have an umbrella school like this. We had to go, like I said, and get it piecemeal. So everyone I studied with became my mentor. I didn't do that on purpose. It just happened. And those are some of the best organic mentorships, because it's not forced. I feel like mentorship cannot be forced. You know, it has to be organic, and it has to evolve out of a relationship, student to teacher, let's say.
I think so too, because you can always, if you admire someone's work, you can eventually have them be your mentor, but you have to get in with them. You have to get in with them. You have to find that in. So it can come through, you got to find the way to connect to them. And that can be starting to form an email relationship with them that evolves. You got to find that connection. So we got a few more questions. So we'll try and answer them, again, to answer them quickly. Sierra asks, for someone that has a history of building personal relationships with clientele and wants to work in film, what's considered a boundary of relationship building and also professionalism in the industry?
I'm not sure I understand the term boundary of relationship building.
I don't know that I understand the question fully either. So we're gonna skip that, and we're gonna give you a minute to clarify that. We're going to move on to Nadia's question, but we're going to give you a second to clarify that. So Nadia welcomes you. She thinks you're a sweetheart and a humble person, and I have to say, she has clocked you correctly.
Thank you.
You know, she says, I know you have had such a long, successful career, but what has been your favorite job or area to work in? I love that.
That's a wonderful question. Oh, I have so many. All right, I'll list my favorites. The television, being head of makeup for the network was a really favorite position. I had my own makeup room. I ordered the supplies. I was in charge of the other artists there. It felt really wonderful. And a lot of celebrities came and walked through those doors in and out. So love that. I loved working on The Guiding Light, which was a long-time soap opera that no longer is right now, but it was a really quality soap opera. It had started 50 years before as a radio show, so it was a long-term project, and everything was quality. The actors were quality. The makeup room was great. The relationship between makeup and the actors was great. And the fun moments when you would finish a person's makeup completely, right, an actor or two, and then they just suddenly got this urge to squirt each other with squirt guns and run all around the hair and makeup room and doing that, and there goes your work, and you're like, ah! And you think it's going to be a disaster, but if you layer it on properly, nothing moves much. You just repowder them. So things like that were a lot of fun. And I also love weddings and brides, because it's a very momentous occasion in a person's life, and you get to be a part of it. And it just feels like such a blessing inside and out.
I think that's incredible. And for me, it's so interesting, because the things I find so interesting and I've loved so much are different. And that's the thing, that even goes to show that you don't, even your mentor doesn't even have to walk the exact same path that you do. They have to have skills and things that you want to acquire and things that you naturally radiate toward. It's beautiful. Great answer.
Why don't you
Great
tell
answer.
us yours, Nathan? Thank you.
Celebrities. That's really been the majority of my career. I've done major ad campaigns and celebrities, but I found that I naturally gravitated to celebrities because there's the two things. The thing that I take most pride in, and I can say this honestly, and I know this is true for you too, it's educating. Educating is the thing that I take most pride in. Of everything that I've done in my career, even surpassing the legends I've worked with, having the opportunity to work with people whose dream is to go down this path. It's been that has been the greatest gift of my life. I can say that hands down. It's been the absolute greatest gift of my life. And I think having had the opportunity to be on television shows like Project Runway and working with so many celebrities, it paved the path that allowed me to do that. So it's interesting. It was the stairway that led me to the thing that brings me the greatest joy.
How fantastically put. That's so great. What a vision.
Because if we look at yours, you took a slightly similar but different pathway that led you right to education.
Education. Absolutely, because there's also a friend of mine, a longtime friend of mine, Cindy Gardner, which I think you know.
I do know.
Also, yeah, she's a treasure. She says the same thing. She says, at some point, I felt like I wanted to give back.
And when you give, which is why I always tell people, teach your clients when you're working on them. Tell them a trick, tell them a secret, because what you give away, you get more of.
Excellent. So true.
And what you teach, you learn better.
Yes.
I think we have one more question. Let me see here. And it is this. Is the union open to Caribbean nationalists? If no, what would Caribbean residents have to do to position themselves to be a part of the union?
Okay, I think that's very simple. You have to live. It doesn't matter where you're from. You have to live within the jurisdiction of the union. Let's say we have District 10 over here. We're New York, New Jersey. You have to live within that district for 6 months before you apply, because you have to have a home base and a home residence that relates to where you're going to be working, and or if you're going to be sent away on productions to other countries, your rate of pay, your hotel rooms, your transportation, all has to have the same base to be calculated.
I think that was an amazing question. And I'm just going to quickly, Sierra followed up with her last question, but I'm just going to pitch it out to you, and I'm going to kind of answer it for her. She's saying she's worked in weddings forever, and then she ends up having relationships with these people for the rest of their lives. She wants to know if that can go on. Yes, some of my celebrity clients are my best friends. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We text, we talk.
Absolutely, definitely.
At the end of the day, they're human beings. If this person enjoys being around you and finds that you add benefit to their life, there is nothing stopping you two from being even best friends. Nothing stopping you.
Brilliant. And that's a really good, now that I understand the question, that is an excellent question, because I feel like, well, I'm, part European, and I feel like in Europe, this happens very naturally, that people don't have so much of an issue with being work friends, because they trust that they know where they're going to keep their boundaries. For example, if the work client all of a sudden didn't want to pay you because they thought they're your friend, then that's a no-no, and that's not something that you want to continue. And all you have to do is verbalize what you need to verbalize to them. But if people respect each other and understand each other's work relationship, you can crisscross friendship in and out of that, as long as you don't start favoritism from either party.
Exactly. And the ones who really, really are your friends never would think not to pay you. So you'll find out quickly who is your friend and who might actually be a user.
Yes.
An opportunist. And that does even happen in the world where people can't afford it. It happens everywhere. happens everywhere. This was a beautiful conversation. I want to give everybody a little an unknown fact about you and your family. Is that okay?
Sure.
Her father worked with one of the greatest minds of our generation, probably greatest minds of ever in the world, perhaps, right? Who did your father work directly with?
Albert Einstein.
Guys, come on. Isn't that amazing? You guys are all now 1 degree away from Albert Einstein. That's like amazing.
Yeah, and for years too. We worked with him for 9 years. Einstein brought him into this country to collaborate with him. And for a moment or two, he actually corrected Einstein's math, because my father was a really good mathematician as well. But he was so embarrassed, he found that Einstein had errors in his math, and he hid from him for a month. And then Einstein came looking for him and said, Jean, what's the matter? I can't find you. And he said, oh, Professor, I think I found an error in your math. And they all worked it out, and it was great.
And that's the thing about great minds. Great minds bring in other great minds because they all become greater together.
Yes. Yes. Brilliant.
Which is why QC is so lucky to have this great mind joining us.
Thank you. It's my honor. It's my pleasure. I'm very excited. I love it. I
guys,
love the
please,
future.
Juan, so sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, I love to keep my pulse on today's future artists and to see what they're doing, where they're going, where they can need help, and where they can inform us with their different creativity.
It's going to be beautiful. And everybody who has the gift of contact with you, which will be our student base, it's going to be a blessing, guys. And I'll tell you that from personal experience. She shines brighter than the fuchsia she's wearing, and her heart is bigger than her entire body. So we are very lucky to have her. The one thing that we can always give, that we can never run out of, is kindness and love. And as I can tell you from the path that we've both had the opportunity to walk, because I've known her for so long, kindness will give you longevity in this business. Knowledge, education, kindness and generosity of your spirit, a great ability to listen, and there's not a lot more you need if your heart is in the right place and you really know your stuff. Anything you want to say to everybody as we bid them goodbye?
I would like to say that I couldn't be more proud of Nathan as the artist that he is, the accomplishments that he's done. It's amazing because it makes me remember back a long time ago when he was my student, and I observed that of all the students I've ever had, Nathan absorbed everything like a sponge. He had a notebook, he had a pen, he would take notes all the time, and he was dead serious about everything that was taught. And that right away told me this person's going to be a smash success, and he is. And I'm so excited to be with QC, and I can't thank you all enough for coming and listening to this webinar and enjoying with us. And I hope to see more of all of you soon.
Well, my guys, until we meet again, remember, lead with your heart, never stop learning, and you are loved. This world is way better because every one of you is in it, and I can't wait to see the magic you're going to continue to make. Chantal, thank you for your time today.
My pleasure, Nathan. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. We are signing off.
Goodbye.
See you soon.